The morning started like any other for Administrator Vexathala. She floated above her workstation in the grand halls of the Galactic Employment Council, her tentacles moving gracefully as she reviewed the daily reports. The building stretched high into the clouds of Zentari Prime, its crystal walls reflecting the 3 suns that lit the sky. Today was special. Today they would release the updated Universal Occupational Safety Database to all member worlds. Vexathala had worked on this project for 2 full cycles, carefully reviewing every dangerous job in the galaxy. The database contained thousands of jobs. Most were safe and normal. Some were risky but doable with the right training and equipment. But at the very bottom of the list sat the jobs that no one should ever try to do. The unlivable occupations. Vexathala pulled up the final list on her screen. 147 jobs that would kill, break, or destroy any being foolish enough to attempt them. She read through them one more time, feeling proud of her thorough work. Neutron Star Lighthouse Keeper topped the list. The job required someone to maintain warning beacons near neutron stars. The radiation would cook any known life form in minutes. Even the best protective suits only lasted hours before falling apart. Void Whale Therapist came next. These massive creatures lived in the empty space between galaxies. Their minds were so alien and powerful that just touching their thoughts would shatter most brains. 3 ethereal specialists had tried it over the centuries. All 3 ended up in mental hospitals, speaking only in whale song. Solar Core Mining Supervisor was number 3. The job meant going inside active stars to oversee mining robots. The temperature reached millions of degrees. No material could survive it. No life form could even get close without becoming superheated gas. The list went on and on. Hive Mind Mediator, for settling disputes between collective consciousness species. Time Dilation Cargo Pilot, for flying ships through areas where time moved wrong. Quarantine World Inspector, for checking planets full of diseases that could melt flesh or turn minds inside out. Each job had killed or destroyed everyone who tried it. The Council had learned hard lessons over thousands of years. Some things were just impossible for living beings to do, no matter how advanced their technology or how brave their hearts. Vexathala sent the list to the translation department. Within hours, it would be broadcast to every world in the galaxy in over 3,000 languages. News services would pick it up. Safety instructors would use it in their classes. Parents would point to it when their children talked about dangerous careers. The Unlivable Occupations list served as a reminder. The universe was vast and deadly. Even with all their science and wisdom, there were places civilized beings could not go and things they could not do. 2 hours later, Vexathala received a message from the head of Galactic News Network. They wanted to do a story about the new additions to the list. 15 jobs had been added this cycle, bringing the total from 132 to 147. Administrator Vexathala, the reporter said during the interview, "Can you tell our viewers about the new additions?" "Certainly," Vexathala replied, her voice translator making her words clear to all species. "We added several new positions based on recent discoveries and incidents. The most notable is probably Deep Trench Reality Monitor." The reporter's eyes went wide. "That's the job studying the reality warping zones in the Chaos Nebula, correct?" "Yes. We lost an entire research team there last cycle. The zones change the laws of physics randomly. What works one moment might kill you the next. We've declared it completely off limits for any personnel." "What about the others?" "Well, there's Singularity Engine Maintenance Technician. Black hole power systems are incredibly efficient, but the gravity fields tear apart anyone who gets too close. Even robots fail after a few minutes." Vexathala continued through the list. Crystal Hive Negotiator, for dealing with silicon-based life forms whose communication methods could shatter most minds. Plasma Storm Navigator for flying ships through stellar weather that could melt mountains, Dimensional Breach Surveyor for mapping holes in reality where the universe leaked into other universes. Each of these positions represents the absolute limit of what's possible, Vexthala explained. We've tried sending our best people, our most advanced robots, our smartest AIs. Nothing works. These jobs exist in environments that are simply hostile to life itself. The interview aired that evening across the galaxy. Most viewers nodded in agreement. The universe was dangerous enough without actively seeking out the worst parts of it. On the civilized world of Harmony the Seventh, the crystal beings who lived there watched the news with their children. Parents used the list to explain why being careful was important. On the gas giant colonies of the Titan Collective, floating cities full of balloon-like creatures discussed the list in their council meetings. They praised the wisdom of knowing when to give up. On 1,000 other worlds, billions of beings saw the list and felt grateful that their governments were smart enough to protect them from such madness. But there was one small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy where the reaction was very different. Earth had only joined galactic society 37 years ago. Humans were still new to the bigger universe. They were considered a minor species, interesting but not very important. Their world was classified as a Class 7 death world, which most galactic citizens thought was just bad luck. The news about the unlivable occupations reached Earth's communication networks at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. By morning, it had spread across every human news service, social media platform, and coffee shop conversation. But instead of the respectful fear that other species showed, humans had a very different response. They were excited. On space stations throughout human territory, workers gathered around screens showing the list. Instead of worry, their faces showed interest. Instead of fear, they showed curiosity. "Look at this," said Marcus Chen, a therapist working on Luna Station. "Void whale therapist. That sounds fascinating. I wonder what their psychology is like." Sarah Okafor, a doctor studying alien diseases on Mars Medical Center, read about Quarantine World Inspector and felt her pulse quicken. "Disease worlds that can kill most species? My immune system's been fighting Earth bugs my whole life. How different could alien ones be?" Dmitry Volkov, a former soldier now working asteroid mining, saw asteroid belt salvage in active war zones and laughed. "War zones in space? I did 3 tours in Earth war zones. At least in space, there's no mud." Across human space, millions of people read the Unlivable Occupations list, not as a warning, but as a job fair. And slowly, very slowly, they began to apply. 3 days after the Unlivable Occupations list went public, junior clerk Zixmal was having a normal morning. The young Zentorian was sorting through routine employment applications when something strange appeared on his screen. Application for position: Neutron Star Lighthouse Keeper. Applicant: James Sullivan, human. Earth Zixmal blinked his 4 eyes in confusion. This had to be a mistake. No one applied for Unlivable Occupations. The system probably had a glitch. He moved the application to the error folder and continued working. Then another application appeared. Application for position: Void Whale Therapist applicant. Marcus Chen, human, Luna Station. Zixmal stared at his screen. 2 applications for impossible jobs in 1 day, both from humans? He checked the translator settings, thinking maybe something was wrong with the language conversion. But everything looked correct. A 3rd application popped up. Application for position: Solar Core Mining. Supervisor applicant: Elena Rodriguez, human, Mars Colony. This was getting weird. Zixmal called his supervisor. "Ma'am, I'm getting applications for the Unlivable Occupations list," he said when Supervisor Veltana answered. "What do you mean, applications?" Veltana's voice carried confusion through the communicator. Actual job applications. Humans are applying for the impossible jobs. There was silence for a long moment. Forward them to me immediately. By the end of the day, Zixmal had processed 23 applications from humans for various unlivable occupations. By the end of the week, the number had grown to over 200. By the end of the month, it was pushing 5,000. Administrator Vex Thala found herself staring at a mountain of applications that shouldn't exist. Every day brought more. Humans weren't just applying randomly either. They were writing detailed cover letters explaining why they wanted these deadly jobs. She pulled up one application at random. "Dear hiring manager," it read, "I am writing to apply for the position of Deep Trench Reality Monitor. I have a PhD in quantum physics and 5 years of experience working in unstable research environments. I find the idea of studying reality warping phenomena absolutely fascinating. I've always been curious about how the universe works when it breaks its own rules. I understand the position involves significant risks, but I've reviewed the casualty reports and believe proper safety protocols could greatly improve survival rates. I'm excited about the opportunity to explore areas where physics gets weird." The application was signed by Dr. Patricia Wong from Earth's Pacific Research Institute. Vexathala read another application, this one for Hive Mind Mediator. "I am a professional negotiator with 15 years of experience in hostage situations and international diplomacy," it said. "I've successfully mediated conflicts between groups with completely different ways of thinking. The idea of working with collective consciousness species is challenging but exciting. I understand previous attempts resulted in mental fragmentation, but I believe this was due to trying to think like the hive minds instead of maintaining individual perspective while facilitating communication." This one came from Robert Hayes, a former police negotiator from Earth. Every application was like this: professional, enthusiastic, and completely insane from a galactic perspective. Vexathala called an emergency meeting with the Employment Council leadership. "We have a situation," she announced to the assembled administrators. "We've received over 5,000 applications for unlivable occupations in the past month, all from humans." Council leader Mordex, an ancient being whose species had helped found galactic civilization, looked confused. "I don't understand. Are you saying humans don't comprehend the classification system?" "That's what I thought initially," Vexathala replied. "But I've reviewed their applications. They understand perfectly. They know these jobs are deadly. They want them anyway." "That's impossible," said Administrator Kyltos from the Science Division. "No evolved species actively seeks out deadly environments. It goes against every survival instinct." Vexathala pulled up the application statistics on the main screen. "Look at the breakdown. We have 47 applications for Neutron Star Lighthouse Keeper alone, 312 for Quarantine World Inspector, 190 for Void Whale Therapist." The room fell silent as the numbers sank in. "How is this possible?" whispered Council Leader Mordex. "I've been researching human psychology," Vexathala continued. "Their species has some unusual characteristics. They evolved on what we classify as a Class 7 death world. Earth is extremely hostile by galactic standards. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, temperature extremes, poisonous plants and animals. Violent weather." "We know this," interrupted Administrator Kyltos. "That's why we were surprised they achieved spaceflight at all. Most Death World species destroy themselves before reaching the stars." "But that's exactly the point," Vexathala said. "Humans didn't just survive Earth. They thrived on it. They developed something called extreme sports for entertainment. They deliberately put themselves in danger for fun. They have professionals who run into burning buildings to save others. They have soldiers who volunteer for the most dangerous missions." The council members looked at each other in bewilderment. "Are you saying," Council Leader Mordex asked slowly, "that humans are naturally attracted to danger?" "Not exactly attracted to it," Vexathala replied, "but they're not repelled by it either." Where we see impossible obstacles, they see interesting challenges. Where we see certain death, they see calculated risks worth taking. Administrator Kyle Tos pulled up human cultural files on his personal screen. This is fascinating from a xenopsychology perspective, but it doesn't change the facts. These jobs will kill anyone who attempts them, including humans. Maybe, Vexathala said. But what if they won't? The room went quiet again. What do you mean? Asked Council Leader Mordex. The Unlivable Occupations list was created based on attempts by species from stable, safe worlds. The ethereals evolved in peaceful energy fields. The crystals grew in perfect harmony caves. The Xentorians developed in balanced ocean environments. None of us evolved to handle extreme conditions. Vexathala brought up Earth's environmental data. But humans evolved in chaos. Their weather changes randomly. Their continents move. Their planet is bombarded by radiation from space. Their gravity is higher than most worlds. Their atmosphere is more corrosive than many industrial chemicals. You're suggesting, Council Leader Mordex said carefully, that humans might actually be capable of these impossible jobs? I'm suggesting we don't know until we try, Vexathala replied. Every species that attempted these jobs came from safe worlds. What if the reason the jobs are impossible is because we've been sending the wrong kind of beings to do them? Administrator Kyltos shook his head. The radiation levels alone around neutron stars would cook any organic being. Human settlements already exist in radiation zones that would be lethal to most species, Vexathala countered. They wear protective suits and take medication. They've been doing it for decades. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Council Leader Mordex called for order. This is unprecedented, he announced. We need to make a decision. Do we ignore these applications and maintain the current safety protocols? Or do we consider the possibility that we might be wrong about what's possible? The vote was close. In the end, curiosity won over caution by a single vote. Very well, Council Leader Mordex said. We will approve a limited trial program. 5 humans, 5 jobs, maximum safety protocols, and constant monitoring. If they survive the first day, we'll consider expanding the program. If they die, we'll ban humans from applying for any unlivable occupations permanently. As the council dispersed, Vexathala felt both excited and terrified. Either they were about to witness a breakthrough in galactic employment practices, or they were about to watch 5 humans die horrible deaths. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn something new about what was possible. The selection process took 3 weeks. From thousands of applications, the Employment Council chose 5 humans for what they privately called the death experiment. Each human would attempt one of the safer, unlivable occupations while being monitored by the best medical and safety teams in the galaxy. Marcus Chen stood in the docking bay of Research Station Omega, looking at the ship that would take him to meet his first void whale. The massive vessel was equipped with more safety equipment than had ever been put on a single craft. Emergency medical pods, backup life support systems, reality anchors to keep his mind stable, and 12 different ways to evacuate him if things went wrong. Are you absolutely certain about this? Asked Dr. Yeltana, the ethereal psychologist who would monitor his mental state. The void whales' minds are completely alien. Just touching their thoughts has driven 3 of our best telepaths permanently insane. Marcus smiled as he checked his equipment one more time. Doctor, I've spent 15 years helping people with severe mental illness back on Earth. I've been inside minds that were completely broken by trauma, drugs, and disease. If I can help a human brain that's been shattered by war or addiction, maybe I can figure out how to talk to a whale. Halfway across the galaxy, Sarah Okafor was putting on the most advanced protective suit ever created. She was about to become the first person to set foot on Plague World Gamma in over 2,000 years. The planet was home to diseases so deadly that even the air around it was considered toxic. The biological hazards on this world have killed every survey team we've ever sent, warned Chief Medical Officer Zixtral as he checked her suit readings. Some of these diseases can eat through metal. Others attack the nervous system directly through electromagnetic fields. Sarah laughed, a sound that the aliens found disturbing in this context. Doc, I grew up on Earth. Our planet is covered with diseases that want to kill us. We've got viruses that dissolve organs, bacteria that eat flesh, parasites that control minds, and fungi that turn brains into mush. Most humans carry dozens of potentially lethal microorganisms all the time. We just learned to live with them. On the other side of the sector, Dmitry Volkov was inspecting his salvage ship. He was about to fly into the Broken Belt, an asteroid field where two alien fleets had been fighting for 30 years. Ships died there daily, and the wreckage was full of valuable technology, but no one had ever successfully salvaged anything because the combat made the area impossible to navigate. The battle computers show over 4,000 active weapon systems in that zone, explained Fleet Commander Torvax. The firing patterns are completely random. No one can predict where the next shots will come from. 3 of our best pilots died just trying to map the edges. Dmitry shrugged as he programmed his navigation computer. Commander, I served 6 tours in urban warfare on Earth. Getting shot at by people who want to kill you while trying to complete a mission? That's basically Tuesday for a human soldier. At least in space, the bullets travel in straight lines. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was making final preparations for perhaps the most impossible job of all. She was going to supervise mining robots inside the corona of a young star. The temperature would reach millions of degrees, and the radiation levels were off every known scale. No biological being has ever survived exposure to stellar corona conditions, stated Science Director Kolmeth as he reviewed the probe data. Even our most advanced robots last only minutes before their components break down. The environment is fundamentally hostile to matter itself. Elena grinned as she tested her experimental protective pod for the 100th time. Director, humans have been working in impossible heat since we first picked up tools. We've learned to work in deserts, volcanoes, steel foundries, and nuclear reactors. The temperature might be higher, but the principle is the same: good equipment, careful planning, and respect for the danger. The 5th human, Rebecca Torres, was preparing to enter a dimensional research facility where reality worked differently every few meters. She would be studying the effects of dimensional instability on matter and energy. Previous researchers had been turned inside out, aged to death, or simply ceased to exist. The dimensional fluctuations in this facility are completely unpredictable, warned Research Coordinator Vel Maxis. The laws of physics change randomly. What's solid one moment might become energy the next. 3 different research teams have simply vanished. Rebecca nodded thoughtfully as she studied the facility blueprints. Coordinator, humans have been exploring dangerous places for our entire history. Caves that flood without warning, storms that change direction instantly, terrain that collapses unexpectedly. We learned long ago that when you can't predict the danger, you prepare for everything and stay flexible. On the day the experiments began, news services across the galaxy watched nervously. Most experts predicted the humans would die within hours, if not minutes. Marcus Chen was first. His ship approached the void whale designated as Contact 17, a creature the size of a small moon drifting in the emptiness between star systems. As his ship's telepathic interfaces came online, Marcus felt the whale's mind touch his. The sensation was overwhelming. Alien thoughts crashed into his consciousness like waves against rocks. For a moment, his vision went white and his body shook. The monitoring team prepared to evacuate him. But Marcus didn't break. Instead, he did something no one expected. He started talking. "Hello?" he said, his voice carrying through the telepathic link. "I know you're confused. You've never met anyone like me before. That's okay. I'm confused too. But maybe we can figure this out together. The whale's thoughts shifted, becoming less chaotic. Marcus continued talking, using techniques he'd learned helping traumatized humans. He didn't try to think like the whale. Instead, he remained solidly human while gently guiding the conversation. Within an hour, he had established the first stable communication with a void whale in galactic history. Sarah Okafor landed on Plague World Gamma and immediately began collecting samples. Her suit's sensors went crazy as alien diseases attacked the protective barriers. But instead of fleeing, Sarah studied the patterns. "These bugs are smart," she reported to the monitoring station. "They're adapting to my defenses faster than expected, but that's actually good news. Back on Earth, the nastiest diseases are usually the smartest ones, and I know how to deal with smart bugs." She began using techniques developed for Earth's most dangerous pathogens. When the alien diseases adapted to her chemical defenses, she switched to thermal sterilization. When they learned to resist heat, she used electromagnetic pulses. When they countered that, she used biological warfare, introducing Earth bacteria that confused and disrupted the alien pathogens. By the end of her first day, Sarah had not only survived, but had begun cataloging and containing the planet's diseases. Dmitry Volkov flew into the Broken Belt and immediately came under fire from multiple directions. His ship's shields flared as energy beams and projectiles converged on his position. The monitoring teams expected him to retreat. Instead, Dmitry laughed and dove deeper into the combat zone. "This is beautiful," he reported over the radio as he spun between explosions. "No mud, no civilians, no politics. Just good clean flying and shooting. It's like the best combat simulation ever, except with better graphics." He began salvaging wreckage while dodging weapons fire, using tactics that seemed insane to galactic military experts but made perfect sense to someone trained in human combat doctrine. He treated the random weapon patterns not as impossible obstacles, but as environmental hazards to be navigated. Elena Rodriguez's pod descended into the star's corona and immediately began screaming alarms as temperatures soared beyond theoretical limits. Her protective systems strained against forces that should have vaporized her instantly. But Elena had done her homework. She'd studied how Earth's sun worked and how humans had learned to work in extreme heat. Her pod wasn't just heavily shielded, it was designed like a spacecraft heat shield, deflecting energy rather than absorbing it. "Temperature readings are stable," she reported calmly as she began directing the mining robots. "Radiation exposure is within acceptable limits. The stellar magnetic fields are actually helping by deflecting some of the worst energy bursts." Rebecca Torres entered the dimensional research facility and immediately experienced reality shifting around her. The floor became a wall, then a ceiling, then something that had no name. But instead of panicking, she began taking notes. "This is fascinating," she reported as she walked through areas where physics worked backward. "The transitions follow patterns. They're not random, they're just operating on rules we don't understand yet. It's like exploring a new type of terrain." By the end of the first day, all 5 humans were not just alive but succeeding beyond anyone's wildest expectations. The monitoring teams sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the data. The impossible had become possible, and it was all because someone had finally sent the right kind of people to do the job. News of the successful human missions spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major news network was running stories about the impossible jobs that were suddenly possible. Within weeks, the economic implications began to hit. The Galactic Stock Exchange experienced its biggest surge in 1,000 years. Neutron star energy stocks shot up 400% overnight when investors realized the Lighthouse Keeper program was actually working. Solar mining futures tripled as word spread about Elena Rodriguez's success in stellar coronas. Asteroid belt salvage companies saw their value increase by 200% when Dmitry Volkov proved that active war zones could be navigated profitably. But the real shock came from the applications. 50,000 new applications in the last month, Administrator Vexathala announced to the emergency council session, all from humans, and these aren't for the same jobs we tested. They're applying for every position on the unlivable occupations list. Council leader Mordex stared at the numbers on his screen. This is unprecedented. We have applications for jobs we didn't even know humans knew about. The applications were as enthusiastic as ever. A former submarine captain wanted to pilot ships through black hole ergospheres. A mountain rescue specialist applied for dimensional breach exploration. A wildlife photographer requested assignment to worlds where the plants ate metal and the atmosphere was made of acid. But the humans weren't just applying. They were succeeding. Marcus Chen had not only established communication with void whales, but had discovered they were actually trying to warn the galaxy about something called the Deep Dark that was coming from outside the universe. Sarah Okafor had turned Plague World Gamma into a research station where scientists could safely study diseases that might someday threaten galactic civilization. Dmitry Volkov had salvaged more technology from the Broken Belt in 1 month than all previous attempts combined. His success had broken the 30-year stalemate between the warring fleets, who were so impressed by his skills that they hired him to mediate their conflict while continuing to salvage their wrecks. Elena Rodriguez had established the first stable mining operation inside a star, extracting materials that could only be formed under stellar conditions. The rare isotopes she collected were revolutionizing medicine and energy production across dozens of worlds. Rebecca Torres had mapped the dimensional facility's reality fluctuations and discovered they weren't random at all. They were evidence of multiple universes overlapping in specific patterns. Her work was leading to breakthrough discoveries in physics and opening up entirely new fields of science. The success stories kept coming. Every week brought news of humans achieving the impossible in new and creative ways. But not everyone was happy about it. "This is madness," declared Ambassador Thelmoran of the Crystalline Hegemony during an emergency session of the Galactic Council. "These humans are disrupting the natural order. For millions of years, we have known what is possible and what is not. Now they come along and change everything. The economic disruption alone is staggering," added Trade Minister Colvaxis from the Ethereal Collective. "Entire industries that we wrote off as impossible are suddenly profitable. Our economic models are useless. Our industrial planning is obsolete." But other species were fascinated rather than frightened. "Perhaps," suggested Science Coordinator Veltana, "we should be asking why we thought these things were impossible in the first place." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human xenobiologist assigned to the research committee, had been studying this exact question. She stood to address the assembly, her small form dwarfed by the massive aliens around her. "The answer is actually quite simple," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "You evolved in paradise. We evolved in hell." The assembly fell silent. "Look at your worlds," Elena continued. "Zentari Prime has perfect weather, stable tectonics, and no dangerous predators. Harmony 7th is a crystal garden where nothing ever changes. The ethereal homeworld is pure energy fields where physical danger doesn't exist." She pulled up environmental data on the main screen. "These are beautiful, stable environments. Your species had thousands of years to develop science and philosophy without worrying about survival. You created magnificent civilizations based on logic, harmony, and safety." The display shifted to show Earth. But this is where we came from. Earth doesn't care about logic or harmony. It has ice ages that freeze half the planet, volcanic eruptions that block out the sun, storms that can level cities, and earthquakes that reshape continents. We have predators that hunt us, diseases that kill us, and weather that tries to drown us, freeze us, or cook us alive. The alien delegates stared at the images of tsunamis, tornadoes, and volcanic eruptions. For humans, Elena explained, danger isn't something to avoid. It's something to overcome. We didn't develop civilization despite our hostile environment. We developed it because of our hostile environment. Every advance we made was a solution to some threat trying to kill us. Ambassador Thel Moran seemed confused. But surely you must want safety and peace like any rational species. Elena smiled. We do want safety, but our definition of safety is different from yours. To us, safety means being prepared for danger, not avoiding it. A human doesn't feel safe hiding from problems. A human feels safe when they have the skills and equipment to solve problems. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species argued that humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Others suggested that maybe humans could teach the galaxy something valuable about facing challenges. The turning point came when reports arrived from the Outer Rim territories. 3 human-operated mining stations in neutron star systems had detected something disturbing. The Void Whale's warnings about the deep dark weren't just philosophy. Something was actually coming from outside the galaxy, something that would arrive in less than 50 years. It was hostile, it was powerful, and it was moving toward inhabited space. Our long-range sensors can't even get a clear reading, reported Admiral Mortex from the Galactic Defense Force. But the preliminary data suggests it's some kind of massive artificial construct. The energy signatures are completely unknown. The assembly erupted in worried discussion. This was exactly the kind of threat that galactic civilization was unprepared for. For millions of years, they had focused on maintaining peace and stability. They had little experience with genuine external threats. "What do we do?" asked Council Leader Mordex. Elena Vasquez stood up again. "With respect, sir, you do what humans have been doing for thousands of years. You figure out how to fight something bigger and stronger than you are." "But how?" demanded Ambassador Thel Moran. "This threat comes from outside everything we know. Our technology, our science, our entire way of thinking may be useless against it." "Then maybe," Elena replied quietly. "It's time to try a different way of thinking." The vote was closer this time, but it passed. The Galactic Council approved the Universal Emergency Employment Act, officially removing all restrictions on human applications for dangerous occupations. More than that, they began actively recruiting humans for positions that had never even been considered possible. Within months, humans were working in black hole research stations, reality warping laboratories, and deep space monitoring posts. They were serving as early warning systems for cosmic threats and developing new technologies for dealing with impossible problems. The galaxy was changing. Where once there had been limits, now there were possibilities. Where once there had been safety through avoidance, now there was safety through preparation. And somewhere in the deep dark between galaxies, something ancient and hostile continued its steady approach, unaware that the galaxy was no longer the same peaceful collection of civilized worlds it had been planning to conquer. The universe was about to learn what humans had always known. The most dangerous predator is the one that refuses to give up. 1 year later, Administrator Vexithala barely recognized her job anymore. The Galactic Employment Council had been completely transformed. Where once they had maintained careful lists of what was impossible, now they found themselves creating new job categories faster than they could process applications. She floated above her workstation, reviewing the latest employment statistics. The numbers were staggering. The Unlivable occupations list no longer existed. In its place was something called the High-Risk Opportunities Database, and every single position had a waiting list. Not just any waiting list, but specifically human waiting lists. "Ma'am," called Junior Clerk Zixmal from his station. "We have a new application." "What's the position?" Vexithala asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Theoretical Singularity Explorer, Zixmal replied. It's for investigating what happens inside black holes. The job was just posted this morning. And we already have 47 human applications. Vexithala sighed. This had become routine. Scientists would publish papers about theoretically impossible research that no one could ever conduct. Within days, humans would be applying to conduct it. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Industries that had been dead for millions of years were now booming. Research projects that had been abandoned as too dangerous were being completed by enthusiastic human teams. Regions of space that had been written off as permanently uninhabitable now hosted thriving human settlements. The economic numbers told the story. Galactic productivity had increased by 340% in 1 year. Energy production was up 500% thanks to humans working in stellar environments. Mining output had tripled as humans accessed asteroid fields, gas giant cores, and even neutron star surfaces. Scientific discovery had accelerated so rapidly that the academic journals couldn't keep up. But the real change was philosophical. Administrator Vexithala announced her communication system. You have a call from Dimensional Research Station 7. The screen lit up to show Rebecca Torres, now the head of interdimensional studies. Behind her, reality shifted and flowed in patterns that would have driven most beings insane. Rebecca looked completely comfortable. Vexithala, we've got good news and bad news, Rebecca said cheerfully. The good news is we've figured out how to map the reality fluctuations across entire star systems. We can predict where physics will work normally and where it won't. And the bad news? Vexithala asked, though with humans. The bad news was often just a different kind of good news. The deep dark entity is definitely heading this way, and it's bigger than we thought. The void whales were right to be worried. This thing is the size of a solar system, and it's not just hostile. It's actively reshaping reality as it moves. Vexithala felt her tentacles droop with worry. How long do we have? 47 years, 8 months, and 12 days, Rebecca replied with typical human precision. But don't worry, we've got a plan. This was another thing that had changed. When faced with impossible threats, humans didn't despair. They made plans. The plan, as it turned out, was typically human in its audacity. Marcus Chen had established a galaxy-wide communication network using void whales as relay stations. The massive creatures could carry messages instantly across impossible distances, creating a coordination system that spanned the entire galaxy. Sarah Okafor had developed biological weapons using modified alien diseases that could survive in the vacuum of space. Her plague worlds had become testing grounds for organisms that could attack the deep dark entity at the cellular level. Dmitry Volkov had turned the entire galaxy into a military training ground. War zones that had been problems for thousands of years were now finishing schools where beings learned to fight effectively. The Broken Belt had become a prestigious combat academy. Elena Rodriguez had weaponized stars. Her stellar mining operations could now redirect stellar output, turning ordinary suns into focused energy weapons capable of melting planets. And Rebecca Torres had found a way to create controlled reality storms that could disrupt the deep, dark entity's ability to reshape physics. But the most important change wasn't technological. It was cultural. Other species were learning to think like humans. Young Zentorians were volunteering for dangerous research missions. Crystal beings were exploring unstable environments. Even the cautious ethereals were taking calculated risks in pursuit of knowledge. The galaxy was developing what humans called courage, the ability to face danger, not because you weren't afraid, but because the goal was worth the risk. The deep dark entity is powerful, announced Dr. Elena Vasquez at the final planning meeting for Galactic Defense. Our simulations suggest it has technology we can't understand and capabilities that violate several laws of physics. In a straight fight, it would probably win. The assembled representatives from across the galaxy listened nervously. "But here's what it doesn't understand about us," Elena continued. "It evolved in the empty spaces between galaxies, where nothing ever changes and nothing ever fights back. It's used to encountering peaceful civilizations that surrender or die quietly." She smiled with typical human confidence. "It has never encountered a galaxy full of beings who learned to fight from humans. It doesn't know that we've turned physics itself into a weapon. It doesn't know that every star system now has early warning networks and defensive installations. It doesn't know that the void whales are ready to carry battle plans across the galaxy in minutes." Elena pulled up the final defense plans on the main screen. They were complex beyond anything the galaxy had ever attempted, involving coordinated actions across millions of star systems. "Most importantly," she said, "it doesn't know that when humans are backed into a corner, we don't just fight to survive. We fight to win." The meeting ended with the formal activation of Operation Deep Strike, the plan to meet the deep dark entity at the galaxy's edge and destroy it before it could penetrate inhabited space. Administrator Vexthala returned to her office and found one final application waiting on her desk. Position: Deep Dark Entity Combat. Specialist applicant: James Murphy. Human. Earth previous experience. Storm Chaser. Bomb disposal, professional wrestler, volcano photographer, and certified lunatic. I've been preparing for this my whole life. When do I start? Vexathala looked out her window at the stars and smiled. 47 years ago, the galaxy had been certain about what was possible and what wasn't. Those certainties had been comfortable, safe, and completely wrong. Now, as she watched human ships launching toward impossible destinations and alien crews volunteering for dangerous missions, she realized something important. The galaxy hadn't just gained a new workforce, it had gained a new way of thinking about problems. Where once they had asked, "How do we avoid this danger?" now they asked, "How do we overcome this challenge?" The change had started with a simple list of impossible jobs, but it had become something much bigger. It had become a transformation of what galactic civilization thought it could achieve. In 47 years, when the deep dark entity arrived expecting to find another collection of peaceful worlds to conquer, it would instead face something unprecedented, an entire galaxy that had learned to fight from the species that never learned to give up. And somewhere in the deep cold between the stars, teams of humans were already flying toward the approaching threat, eager to get the first look at what they would soon be fighting. Because that's what humans did. When the galaxy said something was impossible, humans asked for directions and started packing,